I come on here to tell y'all that I am not boycotting Asian restaurants. I'm not boycotting Asian like nail techs. You know why? Because I never shopped with them motherfuckers anyway. They were racist to me when I worked for Chase Bank. Asian people hated blacks. I've been discriminated against here in Norman. The little Asian lady lived next door to me. She was selling parking spots, parking people behind my house because we had a duplex, and she was getting paid for it because we lived by the OU Stadium. So people will pay to park in your yard if they can walk to the stadium from your yard. But she was getting paid for spots behind my apartment. So I went over and asked, I said, how are you parking people in my yard and getting paid and not giving me part of the money? Well, the next week, she blocked it off where they couldn't park behind my house. Anyway, she didn't want me to make no money, so there's that. I've been cursed out over the phone, talked crazy too by them because they knew I was black over the phone. So, yeah, I'm not boycotting because I never liked Chinese food anyway. I never got my nails done anyway. My nails are natural. I don't deal with them. I don't buy fake hair because I got hair. So, I ain't going to boycott them, but I'm glad y'all are because that man should have been found guilty for killing that baby over that damn bottle of water. And I don't care what you say. They've been getting away with being racist toward us for a long time. And I feel like this, even during the pandemic, they were throwing people out over there in China. They were being racist during the pandemic, too. So I hope they all go out of business. And even though I'm not boycotting, I'm on here to tell y'all go ahead and take that black dollar back. Let them see. I never did shop at Target either, so I never did have to boycott them. If you ain't never shopped with them or they ain't never got none of my money. So I'm happy for black people standing up for their rights. I love y'all.
I'm standing in Koreatown, Los Angeles, the heart of the 1992 riots, which were sparked by the tragic murder of Latasha Harlins. Both that case and the murder of Cyrus Carmichael Belton shows that the American judicial system systematically devalues black lives. If the racial roles were reversed, a black store owner chasing an Asian child down the street and shooting them in the back over a false accusation, the legal system would almost certainly hand down a maximum sentence, as we've seen this pattern of overly punishing black perpetrators and under-punishing the attackers of black victims play out again and again. The LA riots wiped out over $500 million of immigrant families' life savings overnight. But that explosion of grief was a blunt instrument, as it flattened entire neighborhoods and destroyed the livelihoods of people who had nothing to do with the case, including poor Asian immigrants who had treated all their customers with respect. It also ignored the fact that Asian Americans are not a monolith. Not every Asian person is Korean or Chinese like these two murderers. Not every Korean or Chinese person is racist. The path forward is laser-focused organizing. Don't stereotype and boycott an entire race of people, as that is inherently racist. Target the specific businesses that disrespect black customers, treating them like criminals, because I don't want to shop at an Asian business that disrespects my friends. Let's put black and Asian dollars into black businesses while not punishing Asian businesses that have always treated black folks with kindness and respect. I know it wouldn't be fair for me to boycott all black businesses just because one black person harmed an Asian person. Let's stamp out racism in all of our communities and work towards collective liberation together.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Christine and thank you so much for tuning in. So I want you to really sit with this topic for a minute, because this is one of those conversations that sounds simple on the surface, but the more you look at it, the more layers it starts to have. We've been seeing discussions online and about what people are calling a kind of Black American boycott movement affecting businesses in the United States. And depending on who you listen to, the story changes. Some people say certain businesses are struggling. Others say it's exaggerated. And others say it's just normal economic behavior being turned into a cultural debate. But regardless of how people frame it, one thing is clear. Money is always going to reveal patterns in society, because the moment people change where they spend their money, whether individually or collectively, some things always shift. Businesses notice it, communities notice it, and eventually even public conversations start to reflect it. Observing how this conversation is playing out, especially in relation to Black American experiences and how people interpret economic behavior through a racial lens. And what stands out to me is how quickly economic decisions can turn into emotional debate online. Because in theory, spending money should be simple. People go where they feel comfortable. People support with what they trust. People avoid what they don't trust. That's how markets work in almost every part of the world. But in practice, especially in discussions involving race in America, it becomes much more sensitive than that. Now, historically, Black American economic behavior has always been part of larger conversation about fairness, opportunity, and respect. There's a long history of people using their spending power or choosing not to spend as form of expression. People call that protest. Some people call it boycott. Some people call it economic resistance. But at the core, it is still people making choices based on how they perceive their environment. And that's important to understand because once you accept that, you also have to accept that economic behavior is not just random, it is influenced by experience. Now that the part makes this current conversation complicated is how people interpret those choices. Because some interpret it as empowerment, others interpret it as divisions, and others interpret it as something unfair happening in the market. And all of those interpretations start competing with each other online. And that's where misinformation, exaggeration, and emotional framing usually take over the conversation. So in this video, I want to slow down everything. I want to break this down step by step. What does it actually mean when people say boycotts are happening? What does it actually mean when businesses feel pressure? And what part of these economic realities versus online narrative? Because once you remove all the emotional language, what you are left with is a very simple system: people, money, trust, and behavior. And that system exists everywhere in the world, not just in one country. So let's break it down properly. Let's watch the rest of the videos, then I'll be back so that we can talk more about it.
An Asian content creator got on this here internet wearing what can only be described as a Black American starter kit and decided to tell Black people that our money doesn't matter. Okay. According to him, Black people need Asian-owned businesses more than Asian-owned businesses need Black people. A boycott wouldn't move anything. The loss wouldn't register. Our dollars don't count. Now, this might just be me, but if I genuinely believed that somebody's money didn't matter, I don't think I'd spend my afternoon making a video about it. So naturally, I went looking at the history, because this conversation isn't really about just one video, right? The very second that Black people start talking economics, where our money goes, who profits from it, who builds wealth off our communities, people get uncomfortable. That same discomfort doesn't appear when other groups do the same thing. Every immigrant community that's come to this country has done it. Jewish, Chinese, Korean, Italian, Indian, Armenian, pooling resources, building businesses, keeping their money inside their communities for as long as possible. Nobody finds that controversial, though. But what they fail to recognize is that we understood the same thing. We had to. After slavery, Black communities built banks, hospitals, insurance companies, schools, newspapers, whole business districts. The Greenwood neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma had 191 businesses. It had 2 schools, a hospital, and a library, all by 1921. They called it Black Wall Street. But on May 31st, 1921, a white mob attacked it. 2 days of looting, burning, and shooting. But it's us, right? We're the problem. 35 square blocks destroyed. More than 1,200 Black homes, businesses, schools, and churches, y'all, burned to the ground. World War I era planes dropped bombs from the sky on the Greenwood neighborhood. The official death toll was 36. But we know the estimates were around 300 Black people killed, murdered. The survivors were rounded up and held in internment camps in their own city. They were issued identification cards and couldn't leave without permission from a white supervisor. Insurance companies refused every claim. They had something called a riot clause. Not a single Black resident ever received financial assistance to rebuild. So when somebody gets on the internet and tells Black people that our money doesn't matter, I automatically think they're a dumbass. A racist dumbass. Corporations spend billions chasing Black consumers. Political campaigns spend millions trying to reach Black voters. Entire industries are built around marketing to Black communities. Our money matters. It mattered enough to burn a city for it in 1921. It mattered enough to redline neighborhoods for the next 50 years. It matters enough that every quarter, somebody's profit and loss statement depends on us showing up. Apparently, our money matters right up until we start talking about where we want to spend it. Then all of a sudden, it doesn't. Right? Nobody's entitled to Black customers. We spend our money where we want. That's how markets work. That's how capitalism works. That's how every other community inside this country operates. The fact that this becomes a controversy every time Black people say it out loud tells me that this was never about money. It was about leverage. And this country has been comfortable with Black spending. It's Black leverage that's always made them nervous. But if you know anything about me, you know I love a good challenge. Shop Black. Spend with your people. I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you. We gonna show you better than we can tell you. Invest in Black businesses. Build the community. Y'all, we are overdue.
The business owner, like the Asian business owners, Chinese, Korean, I never know like which is which when I'm looking at them or talking to them, but they are in an uproar right now. They are so upset because it is said that their businesses are getting boycotted, that their parking lots are empty, based off of a not guilty verdict that's recently happened prior to this weekend. And there's a lot of people upset, and people are really upset at the Asian community. I have never ever seen an Asian go off before until today. I have never seen a Korea or a Chinese person go off and just go in so hard until I seen it today on TikTok. These people are pissed. Allegedly, one Asian came back and said that we actually need them, that we can't make it without their businesses. They said everything that we buy is made in China, made in Korea, and so on and so on. The guy basically said that we cannot make it without their products. But yet, I don't think that he completely lied. If you go into our stores, 90% of what's on those shelves in the store, made in China. The next time you go to Walmart, Target, or any of those stores, pick up one of those coffee cups, look at the bottom of it, made in China. Your spoons, knife, and fork set, turn it over and look at it, made in China. The next time you go buy a blanket or something, look at the tag on the blanket, made in China. So they are talking, bro, and these people are pissed because they feel like the boycott is really affecting their businesses. And if it's true, and some of the videos I've seen on TikTok today is true, and they're not made up AI videos, it looks like that boycott is taking effect extremely fast. One lady pulled up to 3 of the nail salons, and every last one of them was empty, man. Now, I don't know if those nail salons open on Sunday. She could have been capping and pulled up on a day that they were closed, but it seems to me like those nail salons are open 7 days a week, man. But them Asians is starting to try to clap back, bro. Y'all better be careful. I ain't never seen an Asian go off like I seen today. It's getting crazy out here, y'all.
Welcome back. So after looking at all of this, we need to bring the conversation back to something grounded and realistic. At the core of this entire discussion is something very simple: consumer behavior. Every economy in the world depends on it. People decide whether to spend their money based on a combination of trust, experience, culture, convenience, and perception. And when many of those factors change, spending behavior changes with them. That's not controversial. That's not emotional. That's just how system works. Now, when people start labeling those changes as boycotts, it becomes more than just economics. It becomes symbolic. It becomes interpreted. It becomes debated. Now it's not just about money, it's about meaning. And meaning is where things get complicated. Some people see boycotts as form of expression. They see it as a way communities communicate dissatisfaction or push for change. Others see it as harmful because it affects businesses and livelihoods. And both of those perspectives exist in real time. But what matters most is separating interpretation from fact. Because in many online discussions, what actually happened and what people believe happened are not always the same thing. And that gap is where confusion grows. Now, from a broader perspective, especially when people bring Black American experiences into these conversations, there is already a deep historical context about economic participation, exclusion, and community empowerment. So it makes sense that any discussion involving spending patterns becomes sensitive very quickly, but sensitive alone doesn't define truth. It only shows that the topic matters to people. Now, when businesses feel a drop in customers, the reaction is usually concern. That is universal. Any business anywhere in the world will respond the same way. It doesn't matter who owns it, it doesn't matter where it is. Businesses depend on demand, and when demand shifts, they adjust or they struggle. That is basic economics. But where people sometimes grow is when they start attracting entire communities to those shifts in a generalized way. Because once you start saying, this group is doing this or that group is reacting like that, the conversation stops being analytical and becomes emotional and identity based. And that's when online narrative often become exaggerated or distorted. Now there's also a political layer that people sometimes add to this kind of discussion, suggesting that government or political figures can step in and control or reverse consumer behavior. Most democratic systems, that's not how it works. Governments can regulate laws, they can respond to public concerns, they can set frameworks for fairness and protection, but they don't directly control where individuals choose to spend their money in everyday life. So a lot of those claims you see online are usually more narrative driven than reality based. At the end of the day, what we are really looking at here is a simple but powerful relationship. People influence markets, markets reflect behavior. Behavior reflects trust and experience. And when trust changes, everything else follows naturally. That applies across all communities, all countries, and all contexts. Instead of trying to turn this into a story of winners and losers, the more useful approach is to ask better questions. What is causing changes in consumer behavior? What experiences are shaping those choices? And how do businesses and communities respond in way that builds trust instead of tension? Because that's where real progress comes from, not from blame, not from exaggeration, but from misunderstanding how people actually behave. And I think once you strip everything else away, that's what this conversation really comes down to. Human behavior, trust, and economics responding in real time. So I'll leave it there. Because whether people agree or disagree, money always tells a story. And the real question is whether we are reading the story correctly or just reacting to it emotionally. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this episode in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.